think I haven't had somebody on the show because they're gay? What's wrong with you, man? I'm black. I'm black, man. I'm the biggest minority you know about. I don't want to hear that gay trash, man. I got gay friends I've had on the show. Because you don't know them or it ain't who you want on the show, you got a problem with it. If you want to book it, get yourself a show. Now sit down, so I can do the show. You've had your say and I've had mine.
At 69, Arsenio Hall moves quietly through life like a man trying not to be seen. Hard to imagine, right?
He's the prince.
Who told you that?
There was a time when his woof woof chant lit up America, and his energy ruled late-night TV. He wasn't just another talk show host, he was the face of a generation, especially for black audiences who finally saw someone like them on the big stage. Arsenio became a symbol, bold, stylish, and rebellious. A voice for those tired of the same faces running the show. But now, many young people don't even recognize his name.
I wonder what Arsenio's doing right now. He probably at a wine and cheese party.
Damn, this some good-ass cheese.
That's the painful part. His downfall isn't about scandals or wild controversies. It's something deeper. It's about how time wears you down, how the spotlight fades, and how loneliness can quietly take over. This story dives deep into every chapter of his life, from his childhood in Cleveland to the man he is at 69, and how each crack in his journey shaped him into a legend nearly lost to time.
They don't tell him how good the cheese is, he'll be mad.
How come you didn't tell me how good the cheese was? Motherfucker. Good ass cheese, man. You looking at? I was Bob Eubanks looking motherfucker. You should have told me how good the cheese was.
So what really pushed Arsenio Hall toward this quiet pain? The truth traces back to Cleveland, a kid growing up in a fractured home where laughter didn't come easy. Born in 1956, little Arsenio learned about survival before he ever understood what it meant to be a kid. From the outside, his story looks like pure success, a man who beat the odds. But if you look closer, you see the scars, the emotional ones, the career setbacks, the loneliness that never really left. Cleveland back then wasn't a dream city. It was steel, smoke, and struggle.
I'm a comedian. Why is it that you can do a joke about anything and anybody, but when you do a gay joke, I gotta have idiots in here protesting over it? You don't see Dan Quayle here.
Families worked hard just to stay afloat. In that world, Arsenio's father, Reverend Fred Hall, was a strict Baptist minister, serious, disciplined, and rarely affectionate. His mother, Annie Hall, was the heart of the home, strong, protective, and always working to keep her son safe from life's cold edges. And that's where the quiet storm inside Arsenio began. In those early Cleveland days, when a young boy started to learn that even future stars can feel unseen. The clash between Arsenio Hall's parents was more than just disagreements. It turned their home into a pressure cooker of tension. Their personalities couldn't have been more different. And as the gap widened, the warmth inside their house slowly faded. When the marriage finally collapsed, little Arsenio was caught in the middle, too young to truly grasp what was happening, but old enough to feel the heartbreak of an empty chair and footsteps that never returned. He stayed mostly with his mother, while his father, though still a respected figure, became more of a ghost in his daily life.
You don't see Milli Vanilli here. What's your problem? It's a joke, man. Loosen up and enjoy it.
And that's when the first real crack appeared. That quiet sense of loss, that missing piece, it settled deep inside him. Arsenio later admitted that this feeling followed him for decades. From that point, he became what people called a latchkey kid, a child who unlocked the front door alone after school, carrying a house key on a string around his neck like a badge of independence. Most afternoons, he'd step into a dark, silent home where even the tick of the kitchen clock sounded too loud. His dinners were simple, eaten in the stillness of a house that felt too big for one person. So he did what many lonely kids did. He turned up the TV volume high. The glowing screen became his best friend. The laughter of talk show hosts, the cheers of audiences, the smiles of comedians, that became his background music. For Arsenio, TV wasn't just entertainment, it was escape. And unknowingly, that's where his dream began. The feeling of being forgotten became his drive to be heard. He learned to use humor as armor, to turn emptiness into energy. In school, he wasn't the star student, but he had one special gift that made people stop and watch: magic.
I'm a minority, man. I do black jokes, I do gay jokes, I do every kind of joke you can imagine. And you don't see people up here interrupting the show and being rude like you are.
By age 8, Arsenio was obsessed with tricks, flipping cards, vanishing coins, and pulling off slick illusions that left everyone amazed. Even then, he was learning how to make the crowd look his way. Arsenio practiced his magic tricks for hours, totally alone, with no one cheering him on. No one had to tell him to do it. The drive came from somewhere deep inside. He couldn't stop, and honestly, he didn't want to. By the time he was around 12 or 13, he was already performing at birthday parties, church events, and neighborhood gatherings. Every trick he pulled off earned him something rare in his young life: attention, applause, and a taste of validation. For those few minutes, every clap and laugh made him feel a little less alone. But magic didn't just entertain him, it taught him a life lesson that stuck forever. Behind every big smile and every flashy illusion, there's always something hidden. A magician's job is to make people believe in what isn't real, and that's exactly what Arsenio learned to do. To smile through the silence, to laugh while hiding the pain underneath. It became his secret armor, the cheerful version of himself that everyone loved, while the real emotions stayed locked inside. By high school at Warrensville Heights, Arsenio was all in. He started mixing magic with stand-up comedy, celebrity impressions, and school plays, testing out every way he could command a room. Even though his home life was far from perfect, the stage gave him a new kind of family, an audience that saw him, listened to him, and reminded him that he mattered. Those early performances sparked a fire. Maybe his life didn't have to be trapped inside the tight walls of Cleveland's struggles. After graduation, Arsenio tried to follow the traditional route and enrolled at Ohio University, but it didn't feel right. Sitting in lectures and chasing grades wasn't his rhythm.
Now, what's wrong? Oh, this one here?
He's bigger.
Huh?
I'm scared of him.
You're scared of this one? He's a sweetheart.
So he dropped out and transferred to Kent State, still searching for where he belonged. There, he kept experimenting, doing shows, cracking jokes, studying crowds, and though he never finished college, one thing hit him like lightning. He wasn't built for an office desk or a quiet life. He was born for the spotlight, the mic, and the sound of laughter echoing back at him. That moment became what you could call tragedy zero, the root of everything that shaped Arsenio Hall's life.
He's a real champ.
Really? I think so. Yeah, you're a real champ, man. You're a real champ. Who would have won if you fought this man in your prime?
A boy raised in silence learned early on how to fake a smile just to survive. He mastered the art of laughter, not because he was always happy, but because it was the only way to hide the loneliness sitting deep inside. Like many entertainers later admitted, laughter is borrowed. It fills the room for a moment, but it never truly heals what's buried beneath. By 1974, Arsenio had enough of Cleveland, the city where every wound was formed and every memory carried a shadow. He packed his dreams and left, chasing something bigger than just distance. It wasn't only a move, it was an escape from the trap that swallowed so many young black kids in his neighborhood. Poverty, invisibility, and jobs that drained your soul while the world forgot your name. Leaving home was his first act of rebellion, a quiet promise to never let his story fade like so many others. His first destination, Chicago, the testing ground for every rising comedian with a dream. But in the mid-70s, Chicago was no fairy tale. The comedy clubs were smoky, crowded, and brutal. The air smelled like nerves and cigarette ash, and only the toughest survived. Arsenio showed up with almost nothing. A few worn-out outfits, an old backpack, and enough determination to fill the room. He slept on friends' couches, scraped by on cheap deli food, and lived night to night just to chase a few minutes on stage. But those early gigs, they were rough. Audiences walked out mid-set, some laughed at him instead of with him, and a few even shouted, "You're not funny," straight to his face.
I was a dancing master.
Yeah, you were a dancer, you moved.
I wasn't that powerful. I was so fast.
Uh-huh.
If he hit me.
One night, the insults hit so hard his legs shook as he walked off the stage. But instead of giving up, he turned every humiliation into a lesson. He wiped off the shame, fixed his smile, and came back the next night like nothing had broken him. Chicago didn't just test Arsenio, it sharpened him. It turned that quiet Cleveland kid into a fighter who was ready to face any crowd and still make them laugh. A real comedian doesn't just tell jokes, they've got to take the punches that come flying from the crowd. But for Arsenio Hall, Chicago was only the warm-up round. By the late 70s, he knew that if he wanted to make it big, he had to take a massive leap of faith. So, with just a few $100, all the money he had to his name, Arsenio packed up his car and hit the road to Los Angeles, chasing a dream that could either make him or break him. LA in those days was packed to the brim with dreamers. Every open mic night was a battlefield, hundreds of hungry performers fighting for just a few minutes in the spotlight. Arsenio stood in those long lines, sometimes for hours, waiting for his turn. He auditioned nonstop, dropped off headshots, and submitted resumes to every studio, agency, and casting office he could find.
On your feet, performing his classic, I Feel Good. This is James Brown.
But most of what came back was rejection, and it hit hard. The words were often the same. You're too black, or you don't fit the audience we sell to. It wasn't about talent, it was about stereotypes and gatekeeping. Arsenio kept pushing anyway, even when the phone calls brought more disappointment than hope. Deep down, he knew one harsh truth. If he quit, no one would even notice. Hollywood wasn't built to welcome black entertainers as leading faces back then, but Arsenio refused to fade into the background.
As soon as the album is out, we don't have to talk. I'm gonna book it, man. He says, no, he doesn't want to do it. And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, well, he doesn't want to do television because he has a lot of street cred. And some guys, love your show, but some guys feel that it takes your street cred and it's commercial television and nobody wants to do that shit.
Finally, in 1983, the door cracked open. He landed a gig as the sidekick on Alan Thicke's late night show, Thicke of the Night. Sure, it wasn't the dream role. The show only lasted one rough season before getting canceled due to terrible ratings, but for Arsenio, it was a breakthrough.
I remember Dr. Dre sent me to talk to a dude named Calvin. His boys knew him as Snoop. So Dre tells me, you got to talk to him. And I'm like, I'm gonna book him, man.
This was his first real chance to see how the machine worked, how to handle a live audience, how to guide guests, and how a late night show truly ran behind the scenes. More importantly, Hollywood finally started noticing him, not just as background talent, but as someone with presence.
So I sit and talk to Snoop, who is on television every moment of every day now.
With Martha Stewart.
Yes, yes.
After Thicke of the Night, Arsenio kept grinding, taking on new gigs, testing new characters, and showing everyone that he wasn't just funny, he was versatile.
Never mind the no street cred.
Hey, we sat and talked, and he says, yeah, man. He said, I got a lot of street cred. What happens if I go on one of these late night talk shows? And
were you the first show he ever did?
Corny, yeah. I said, why don't you just come on and freestyle? And people weren't coming on TV to freestyle then.
Every small role built his confidence, setting him up for the moment that would soon make him one of the most unforgettable voices on late night TV. Before the world truly knew his name, Arsenio Hall was already making quiet moves behind the scenes.
He just came on, we gave him a beat, and he came off the dome, Howie. It was nuts because no one was freestyling. You had to get lawyers' approvals.
Take me to commercial, Snoop!
He became the voice of Winston Zeddemore in The Real Ghostbusters, a role that millions of kids loved without even realizing it was him. He took small acting gigs in Amazon Women on the Moon and a few other TV projects. None of these roles were huge.
Doggy!
It's like this.
Yeah,
and you don't
Mike,
stop.
Yeah.
Now stand up on your feet and peep the beat. Snoop Doggy Dogg's on the mic, I like to speak.
But Arsenio treated each one like gold, sharp, focused, and deliberate, as if he knew every tiny piece was helping him build something much bigger. Then came 1988, the year everything flipped. Eddie Murphy, the comedy king of that era, called him up and invited him to join the cast of Coming to America. That was Arsenio's moment. He didn't just act in the film.
And reach to each and all, I don't stall. Y'all know who the dopest rapper is, his name is Doggy Dogg. I freak and speak and reach to you, cause I'm on the microphone sporting gray and blue. I'm true to what I do, I don't bang it all. I'm the smooth macadamia Snoop Doggy Dogg.
He transformed himself into multiple characters, slipping in and out of roles with the same smoothness he once used for his childhood magic tricks. When the movie hit theaters, it exploded into a full-blown cultural phenomenon, pulling in over $288 million worldwide, a jaw-dropping number for that time. Suddenly, Arsenio wasn't just another face trying to make it, he was the name everyone was talking about.
What do you think of
music out there right now, rap music, hip hop, Prince, you know, George Michaels. What do you think of the stuff happening now?
What do you mean the music's out there right now?
I knew he was going.
No.
As I said it, I said, he's gonna bust you on this one.
The press started calling him the dangerous newcomer, and Hollywood couldn't look away. For the first time, Arsenio felt the world finally hearing him. The kid who once sat alone watching TV now had the spotlight shining right on him. That success lit a fire in the industry. Producers started whispering about something daring, giving Arsenio his own talk show.
But you know, the kids.
Ricky, my drummer's from Washington. He pioneered the beat, you know. But I let Terry Riley.
Teddy Riley, yeah, producer, member of Guy, and prerogative fame.
And I like Bobby Brown.
But this wouldn't be another stiff, old-school program built for middle-aged white audiences. No, this would be a movement, a show with rhythm, youth, and pure attitude and the pulse of 1980s America, a stage that didn't just talk about culture, but created it. And in 1989, history was made. For the first time, America watched a black man step confidently into the center of a late-night stage.
But all the drummers I get, I tell them, it must be a beat in between the beat. You know, Prince says, get up on the one. It's gotta be a beat in between. Bobby and them, Terry has it with, I think it has it with the turntable.
Yeah, the scratching.
Yeah. You gotta get that sound in between.
A world that had been ruled by white hosts since the 1950s. And completely own it, the Arsenio Hall Show premiered with an energy that hit like an explosion. It wasn't just a talk show, it was a moment. The famous woof woof chant roared through living rooms across the country as Arsenio's mix of comedy, music, and unfiltered charisma made late night TV feel alive again. From New York to Los Angeles, from Chicago to Houston, the show was everywhere. And Arsenio Hall had officially become a national powerhouse. For the first time ever, a black host didn't just show up on late night TV, he owned it. Arsenio Hall didn't just join the game, he flipped the entire table, he didn't fit the mold, he shattered it. From the very first episode, everyone watching could feel something brand new was happening. Gone were the stiff suits, robotic interviews, and scripted laughs of the old days. Arsenio brought the future of TV, wild energy, loud crowds, and music that shook the room. His studio didn't feel like a TV set, it felt like a party. People were standing on chairs, clapping, shouting, vibing in a way NBC or CBS would have never allowed. And then came that sound. Woof, woof, woof. That chant became more than a sound, it was a movement. Millions of young people, especially black audiences, shouted it back as if saying, "We're here, we matter, this is ours." Every night felt electric. Arsenio's show was raw, real, and alive. He wore leather jackets, sneakers, and a grin that said he wasn't there to play it safe. He talked to guests like a friend, not a reporter, and he never ran from tough topics. While other hosts stuck to the same Hollywood routine, Arsenio opened his doors to voices the big networks ignored. Rappers, new artists, outspoken actors, and bold activists. Traditional TV bosses called it too risky, but for young America, it was freedom. It was culture taking center stage, loud and unapologetic. The Arsenio Hall Show didn't just entertain, it sparked a cultural revolution that no one could stop. And one of his biggest moves, he brought hip-hop, the sound of the streets, right into the mainstream. For years, hip-hop was dismissed as too raw or too street, but Arsenio gave it the respect it deserved. He put it right in front of America's eyes. MC Hammer made the country dance on that stage. Public Enemy spoke truth to power about black politics, and suddenly, late night TV wasn't just for jokes anymore. It was about voices, power, and change. Arsenio turned his stage into history, a place where entertainment met revolution. Snoop Dogg's very first national TV appearance, it happened on the Arsenio Hall Show. And when Boys the Two Men performed, millions of fans were in tears. Arsenio's stage wasn't just for entertainment, it became the bridge that brought hip-hop and black culture right into the American mainstream. Without him, hip-hop would have still grown, but it never would have hit the mainstream that fast or that powerfully. His show was the front gate to a new era. and Arsenio flung it wide open. And it wasn't just music that changed, politics had to come knocking too. In 1992, something incredible happened. A moment that's now seen as one of the smartest political moves in US election history. A young Bill Clinton, still mostly unknown to young voters, walked onto Arsenio's stage carrying a saxophone. He smiled, played a few smooth notes, and completely shattered the uptight image people had of politicians. That single moment spread like wildfire. Suddenly, Clinton didn't look like another old-school candidate. He looked cool, relatable, human. Political analysts said it straight. Arsenio Hall helped Bill Clinton win over young voters, especially black voters. Imagine that, a late-night host shaping a presidential election. That had never happened before, but that kind of power came with pressure. To reach those heights, Arsenio had to go head-to-head with the biggest name in late-night TV, Johnny Carson and The Tonight Show. No one thought it could be done, but Arsenio proved them wrong. On multiple nights, his ratings beat Carson's, something no one in Hollywood had even dared to dream of. The idea that a black host with a younger crowd and a rebellious format could outshine America's most traditional show. It shook the industry. Hollywood couldn't believe it. Advertisers poured in, musicians lined up to perform, and the headlines were everywhere. Arsenio Hall has changed the rules. But with that success came the flip side, the dark edge of fame. Because the higher you rise, the more people want to see you fall. Arsenio's rise sparked anger in certain circles. Conservative critics came for him hard. They hated the hip-hop influence, the energy, the rebellion, and the way he celebrated black culture on national TV. What they didn't realize was that Arsenio wasn't just running a talk show, he was making history. But even legends learned that standing in the spotlight also means standing in the line of fire. The attacks on Arsenio Hall didn't always come from his jokes or his guests, they came from something deeper. Some critics simply couldn't handle how different he was from the clean-cut, cookie-cutter image of TV hosts at the time. He was bold, unapologetic, and too real for an industry that preferred everything polished and predictable. Sponsors started pushing him to tone it down. Be less black, be less hip-hop, stay away from politics. They wanted his success, but only on their terms. It was an impossible demand. While Arsenio's show was soaring, the pressure behind the scenes was crushing him. Ratings, the heartbeat of any show, became chains he couldn't escape. Viewers wanted something new every single night. Producers chased blockbuster-level guests non-stop. Rival networks fired back with their own flashy lineups trying to steal his shine. Arsenio hosted like a man running a marathon at full sprint, smiling, joking, performing, acting like it was all effortless. But those closest to him could see the truth. The fame, the lights, the applause, it all came with silence once the cameras turned off. The more America celebrated him, the lonelier he became. Behind that confident grin was exhaustion he could never show. And that's when the quiet cracks started forming. Small at first, then spreading beneath the surface. The seeds of tragedy had been planted long before, and now they were starting to grow. By 1994, the unthinkable happened. A short, emotionless announcement from Paramount and Tribune Entertainment sent shockwaves through America. The Arsenio Hall Show was being canceled. The same program that once pulled in over 7.3 million viewers a night. The same show that beat Johnny Carson in key time slots. The same heartbeat of young audiences ages 18 to 34 was suddenly gone. The blow hit hard. Arsenio, once hailed as the fresh, fearless voice of late-night television, was now standing in silence. Hollywood moved fast, maybe too fast. The official press release gave the usual reasons: declining ratings, fierce competition, and a shifting audience. On paper, it sounded logical. The arrival of The Late Show with David Letterman on CBS in 1993 had split the audience, while Jay Leno grabbed the older crowd. But behind those neat explanations, people could feel something else, something unspoken. It wasn't just about ratings or numbers. It was about the system turning its back on a host who had changed everything, who had made space for new voices, new culture, new energy. And just like that, the empire he built, the show that made America howl woof, 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 went quiet. The king of late night had been dethroned and no one saw it coming. But the official story, and the one about ratings and competition, was just a curtain hiding the real truth. Everyone in the business knew what really happened. The Arsenio Hall Show didn't fade because it got old. It was pushed out. It wasn't a failure of creativity or relevance. It was a quiet execution powered by pressure that no one in 1990s television wanted to talk about. After 1991, whispers started spreading through Hollywood's boardrooms. Arsenio's show was getting labeled too black, too hip-hop, too risky. Advertisers wanted safe. And Arsenio was anything but that. The episodes featuring Public Enemy, MC Hammer, Snoop Dogg, or 2 Live Crew made big sponsors nervous. Market reports claimed his audience was too young, too urban, code for too black, and supposedly not part of the high-spending demographic they wanted. Meanwhile, the audience that advertisers did chase, middle-aged white viewers saw hip-hop as something wild and threatening. So behind closed doors, the phone calls and quiet meetings began. Big brands complained, networks grew cautious, and pressure started building like smoke that no one could officially see, but everyone could feel. It was never written down, but everyone in the industry understood exactly what was happening. Then came 1994, the spark that lit the fire. Arsenio did something bold, something very few late-night hosts would have ever risked. He invited members of the Nation of Islam to appear on his show to address rumors that he'd avoided interviewing Louis Farrakhan. It wasn't just another segment, it was a shockwave. That single decision shook Hollywood to its core. Local stations immediately threatened to pull the show from their schedules. Sponsors started sending warning letters, pulling their ads, and distancing themselves. Conservative groups launched attacks, accusing him of bringing dangerous ideas to national TV. Suddenly, Arsenio wasn't just a host, he was a target. The Los Angeles Times later described it perfectly. Arsenio had stepped into the forbidden zone of network television, that dangerous space where race, religion, and politics collide. And in that era, crossing that line came with brutal consequences. The truth was undeniable. When a black host dared to speak openly about subjects TV had long buried, the punishment came quick, sharp, and merciless. Behind the curtain, Arsenio Hall wasn't losing a show. He was being silenced. His stage, once the loudest, most unapologetic voice in America, was being turned off one switch at a time. Not because people stopped watching, but because powerful people stopped wanting him seen. By early 1994, Arsenio could already feel something shifting in the air. The energy in meetings turned cold. Sponsors avoided eye contact, smiles felt forced, and the usual promises about contract renewals suddenly went quiet. The buzz that once followed his name was gone, replaced by silence that felt heavy and final. Then one morning, the phone rang. A short, flat call that changed everything. A voice on the other end told him the words that would end an era. The show's over. No negotiation, no time slot change, no final push, just the end. The night before, he had been the king of late-night TV, hosting one of the most watched shows in America, but by the next morning, there was no stage, no audience, no mic, no chair. The very chair that had welcomed hip-hop into the mainstream, that had made Bill Clinton cool to a new generation, that had helped shape U.S. election history, gone. Just like that. The fall was brutal, and even Arsenio's rivals admitted he didn't deserve it. He hadn't failed. His show hadn't crashed. The ratings weren't the full story. The truth was harsher. The Hollywood system, that massive glittering machine, had decided it no longer wanted his kind of show on national television. That was the real tragedy. It wasn't failure, it was rejection by design. A warning shot to anyone who dared to step too far outside the rules. And when the studio lights finally went dark in 1994, it wasn't just the end of a show, it was the first crack in Arsenio's spirit. The silence that followed became a storm he was never ready to face. Overnight, the man who once ruled late night found himself standing on the outside of an industry he had helped redefine. Still, Arsenio didn't disappear right away. He tried to hold on, to stay visible, to rebuild, to keep the fire alive. But from 1995 to 1998, everything slowed down. The media later called it the Arsenio blackout years. It was a cold, dim chapter where Hollywood didn't know what to do with him anymore. The same man who had once made the entire country howl, "Woof, woof, woof," now struggled to even get a meeting. His biggest and most painful comeback attempt came in 1997 when ABC gave him another shot, a sitcom called Arsenio, with him starring in the lead role. On paper, it sounded like a fresh start, a chance to remind America why they loved him. But behind the optimism, there was pressure, skepticism, and the quiet truth that Hollywood had already moved on. The network wanted him to be funny, but not too real, not too bold, not the Arsenio everyone remembered. He was fighting to keep his name alive, but the machine that once cheered for him was now watching from a distance. What started as a second chance soon turned into a test of survival, and the man who had once ruled late night was now learning how cold the spotlight feels when it's no longer shining on you. This was Arsenio Hall's big comeback attempt, his first real shot at redefining himself. But this time, he wasn't sitting behind a host's desk commanding the room with woof, woof, woof energy. Instead, he stepped into a bright, traditional sitcom, cheerful, scripted, and completely unlike the Arsenio the world knew. From the very first episode, though, something felt off. The Los Angeles Times nailed it perfectly when they wrote that the sitcom was an attempt to reclaim Arsenio's place by putting him in the wrong format. Everything that once made him electric, his speed, his edge, his raw rhythm, was gone. The spark that made his late-night show feel alive just didn't fit inside a studio laugh track. The rebellious spirit that had once flipped TV on its head disappeared inside safe, predictable storytelling. And just like that, after only 7 episodes, ABC pulled the plug. No warning, no extensions, no retooling, just canceled, cold, and fast. It was a brutal drop, from late-night royalty to the star of a sitcom that barely got a chance to breathe. Newspapers called it the most painful post-Arsenio Hall Show moment, and they weren't exaggerating. Hollywood, once obsessed with him, started closing its doors one by one. The offers dried up, lead roles vanished, the phone barely rang, and when it did, it was for cameos or small background parts. Meanwhile, the TV landscape was changing fast. New stars were taking over. Conan O'Brien was reshaping late-night TV with his offbeat humor. Chris Rock was dominating HBO with The Chris Rock Show, and Jon Stewart was gearing up to take The Daily Show into a whole new era. These were the next wave. Sharp, bold, fearless. The very kind of voices Arsenio had helped clear a path for. But now, he was watching from the sidelines. The world he once ruled was spinning without him, and the spotlight that had once burned so bright had moved on. Still, the most painful blow didn't come from losing the fame. It came from something far uglier: rumors. In 1997, gossip outlets suddenly exploded with a story claiming Arsenio had checked into rehab, supposedly alongside a few other Hollywood names. There was no proof, no documents, no facts, just whispers from anonymous sources. And once those rumors hit the press, they spread like wildfire. It was the kind of toxic storm Hollywood is infamous for: fast, messy, and nearly impossible to stop. Arsenio had to publicly deny it again and again, telling interviewers that he had never gone to rehab, that the story was pure fiction. But in show business, truth doesn't always matter. Once people start believing a rumor, it sticks. That false story left a scar. It hurt his reputation, his trust in the industry, and his fight to rebuild. The man who had once made America roar was now forced to defend himself against shadows, and the silence that followed was louder than any crowd could ever be. In Hollywood, a correction never hits as hard as a dirty rumor. And for Arsenio Hall, that truth cut deep. After his show's cancellation, his reputation was already fragile. Then came that false rehab story, and suddenly the damage doubled. Even though there was no proof, the whisper alone was enough to stain his image in an industry terrified of risk. The result? Silence. Quiet but deadly silence. Producers who once praised his timing stopped returning calls. Studios that once fought to work with him started pulling back. Meetings vanished off calendars with no warning, no explanation, just polite excuses that everyone knew weren't real. In Hollywood, the most dangerous thing isn't making mistakes, it's being labeled as a problem even when the label has no truth behind it. And once that label sticks, it can close more doors than any bad review ever could. Under all that weight, Arsenio began slipping into something darker, a quiet psychological crisis that few stars ever admit to. Imagine it. A man who had once defined a cultural movement, who had turned late-night TV upside down, who had become the soundtrack of a generation, suddenly watching from the outside as others took the spotlight he once commanded. The energy that had once made him unstoppable now turned into stillness. The roar of the crowd became a memory. But just as life seemed to be breaking him down, something unexpected and beautiful changed everything. The biggest turning point in Arsenio Hall's life didn't come from a new TV deal, a movie role, or a flashy comeback. It came in the late 1990s with the arrival of his son, Arsenio Hall Jr. At that point, the glow of the Arsenio Hall Show had faded into history. His career was deep in what the media called the clinical death years. Yet in the middle of that silence, he found something real: fatherhood. His son, born from his relationship with Cheryl Bonacci, became the center of his world. The relationship between Arsenio and Cheryl eventually ended. No tabloid drama, no ugly headlines, just two people going separate ways. But when it came to their son, Arsenio made a choice that shocked Hollywood. He chose to raise him alone. No drawn-out custody battle, no court drama, just a father deciding to take full responsibility for nurturing, caring, and being present. He stepped away from the Hollywood grind to be there for his child, choosing diapers and school runs over cameras and scripts. For many stars, fame is oxygen, the one thing they can't live without. But for Arsenio, his son became his new reason to breathe. In the quiet years that followed, while Hollywood barely remembered his name, Arsenio Hall was busy building something far more meaningful than fame: a life centered on love, fatherhood, and peace. For Arsenio Hall Jr., his father made a choice that few artists at their lowest point would ever dare to make. Instead of fighting for another hit or chasing the next big deal, Arsenio did something unheard of. He walked away, and not in the usual Hollywood taking a break kind of way. This wasn't a short retreat or a secret plan for a flashy comeback. He truly disappeared. For nearly 13 years, Arsenio vanished from the spotlight. No red carpets, no movie sets, no talk show appearances. The man who once appeared in front of 7 million viewers every single night became the dad standing by the microwave in the morning and picking up his son from school in the afternoon. The cheers of the crowd were replaced with quiet mornings and school drop-offs. And Arsenio was perfectly fine with that. In interviews later on, he explained his reason, and it hit home for so many people. "I grew up without my father in the house," he said. "I don't want my son to live that way." That wasn't just a nice quote, it was a vow. And Arsenio kept it with everything he had. He had once been a child coming home to silence, a latchkey kid unlocking a dark house and eating dinner alone. He refused to let history repeat itself. During those years away, Arsenio turned down more offers than most actors ever receive in a lifetime. Some of the projects could have reignited his fame, given him another shot at the top. But the schedules were long, the travel endless, and the publicity would have pulled him away from his son. So he said no. Again and again, he chose family over fame, peace over pressure, love over limelight. But time doesn't stop. And by the early 2000s, the question started hanging in the air. Did the world still have a place for Arsenio Hall? His son was older now. The long, quiet years of fatherhood had given him strength and healing, but the industry had moved on. He knew that if he didn't take a risk soon, his name might fade into history forever. Just a memory of the man who once ruled late-night TV. Then out of nowhere came a twist that nobody saw coming. In 2012, opportunity came knocking again. This time from a reality show no one expected to revive his career, Celebrity Apprentice. It wasn't the glamorous comeback anyone imagined for Arsenio Hall, but it was something. A stage, a chance to remind the world that he still had that fire. And when that invitation landed, Arsenio saw it for what it really was, a lifeline. After more than a decade in the shadows, after all the years of silence, he finally had a shot to step back into the world he'd once ruled. This wasn't about reclaiming fame, it was about proving to himself and everyone watching that the man who once made America roar still had a voice worth hearing. When Arsenio Hall joined the 2012 season of Celebrity Apprentice, most people thought he was just there for nostalgia, a blast from the past meant to remind viewers of the old days. But as the competition heated up, it became clear that this wasn't some washed-up celebrity looking for attention. Arsenio came ready to fight, and he fought with the same sharpness and drive that once made him unstoppable on late-night TV. He wasn't just charming. He was strategic, calm under pressure, and persuasive as ever. His speeches hit hard, his leadership was smooth, and when chaos hit the boardroom, Arsenio handled it like a pro. The same charisma that once had America shouting, "Woof, woof, woof," now helped him win challenges, earn respect, and lead teams with confidence. And then came the finale. Arsenio Hall won the entire season. He didn't just beat the odds, he beat younger, trendier competitors who thought they had the advantage. Overnight, headlines exploded everywhere. Arsenio Hall is back. He's the comeback kid, the return of a legend. After nearly 18 years away from the spotlight, Arsenio was back on national television, standing tall like a hero who had finally stepped out of the shadows. For fans who grew up watching him, it felt like watching history rewrite itself. A fallen star finding his light again. It was a moment every artist dreams of. Redemption, recognition, and the hope that maybe this time the world was ready to see him shine again. That victory wasn't just a win on reality TV, it was the spark that reignited everything. The momentum immediately led to a massive announcement. The Arsenio Hall Show was officially coming back in 2013, almost 20 years after it went off the air. But this time, things were different. It wasn't the bold, risky experiment of a hungry young host. This was the return of an icon, a man who had already shaped a generation and was ready to remind everyone why he mattered. Old fans came flooding back, the same people who once filled the nights of the 90s with those famous chants of "woof, woof, woof," ready to relive the magic one more time. For Arsenio, it was more than a comeback. It was proof that no matter how far you fall, legends never truly disappear. They just wait for the right moment to rise again. When the Arsenio Hall Show came back, the media didn't use the word comeback as a joke. They used it with respect. For a moment, it felt like time itself had paused just long enough to let Arsenio step back onto his stage, his spotlight, his throne. The energy was hopeful, the legend was back, and everyone wanted to believe this time it would last. But reality had other plans. Television wasn't the same world anymore. The audience that once stayed up every night cheering woof, woof, woof had grown up. They were now in their late 30s, 40s, and 50s, working long hours, raising kids, juggling life. Staying up late to watch a talk show just wasn't part of their routine anymore. And the new generation, they didn't even live in the same media universe. The young viewers who once made Arsenio a superstar were now hooked on social media, YouTube, podcasts, vlogs, and short clips they could watch on their phones. Late night TV had a new lineup: Jimmy Fallon, Conan O'Brien, Jimmy Kimmel, hosts who represented a new rhythm, a new style, a faster world. Arsenio returned with heart, charisma, and the same signature energy. But the format felt like a time capsule. The 2013 version of the Arsenio Hall Show was built for a world that no longer existed. At first, the excitement carried him. The first week's ratings looked strong, but soon the numbers started to dip, and they kept falling week after week. By May 2014, the inevitable happened. The show was canceled again. No drama, no scandal, no controversy this time, just a simple, painful truth. The audience had moved on. The people who once cheered for him had outgrown the show, and the younger crowd didn't have those memories to pull them in. If the first cancellation back in 1994 had felt like a knife in the back, sudden and unfair, then the 2014 one felt like a slow, quiet verdict. The world had changed, and Arsenio knew it. There was no anger in him this time, no fight left to pick. He understood the cycle, how fame gives and how it takes. When he was told the news, Arsenio simply stood up, thanked the team, and walked out of the meeting room in silence. The same man who had once set America on fire now faced the reality that his era had finally passed. The fall of 2014 didn't just end a show, it closed a chapter of history. It marked the end of a dream built with sweat, with rebellion, with youth, and with years that burned bright. The stage that once echoed with cheers now sat quiet. And Arsenio Hall, the man who once changed late-night television forever, stepped away once more, this time knowing the curtain had truly fallen. In April 2016, the world lost one of its most beloved artists, Prince. His sudden passing from a fentanyl overdose sent shockwaves through America. Fans were heartbroken, and the media was desperate for answers. But in the middle of that grief, something completely unexpected and devastating happened to Arsenio Hall. Out of nowhere, singer Sinead O'Connor posted a shocking message online. In it, she directly accused Arsenio of supplying drugs to Prince and even went further, claiming he had spiked people's drinks to incapacitate them. Just a few sentences, but they hit like a bomb. Within hours, the internet erupted. Major outlets like TMZ, People, Rolling Stone, and even the BBC picked up the story. Overnight, Arsenio Hall, once a 1990s icon and king of late-night TV, was being painted as a villain in an international scandal. What made it even crueler was the truth behind their history. Arsenio and Prince had been close for years. Prince had performed on the Arsenio Hall Show in 2014, giving one of the most talked-about TV appearances of that decade alongside his all-female band, 3RDEYEGIRL. Arsenio had always spoken about Prince with deep admiration, calling him an irreplaceable genius and one of the most gifted artists to ever live. So when those accusations dropped, it wasn't just an attack on his reputation, it was personal. It cut deep. It smeared his name while reopening the wound of losing a friend he respected and cared about. The entertainment world watched in disbelief. One moment, Arsenio was mourning a legend. The next, he was fighting to save his own name. But Arsenio didn't stay quiet. He refused to let lies define him. Within weeks, he filed a $5 million defamation lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court against Sinead O'Connor, accusing her of fabricating every word and deliberately trying to destroy his reputation and career. In the legal complaint, he made it clear the allegations were completely false, built on nothing but rumors. He stated that he had never supplied drugs to Prince or anyone else and described the accusations as malicious, reckless, and entirely made up. It was one of the hardest battles of his life, not just for his career, but for his dignity. Arsenio had already been through fame, downfall, and reinvention. But this was different. It wasn't about ratings or relevance. It was about defending his truth against a storm that could have destroyed everything he had left. And while the headlines blazed and the internet speculated, Arsenio stood firm, determined to prove that not every story the world reads is the real one. Arsenio Hall stood firm, repeating one simple truth. He had never supplied drugs to Prince or to anyone else. This wasn't tabloid drama anymore. This was about something far more serious, his dignity. After years of watching his career fade and his name collect dust in the corners of Hollywood, this was the one thing he refused to lose. Then in June 2016, the storm finally broke. Sinead O'Connor officially withdrew her accusations and issued a public apology. On paper, Arsenio won. Legally, his name was cleared. But emotionally, the damage was already done. Because in the world of fame, especially in the internet age, the truth never travels as fast as the lie. For weeks, the false story had dominated headlines. The apology barely made the front page. A painful irony. The correction was whispered, while the rumor had been shouted from every rooftop. And though Arsenio had fought hard for justice, no legal victory could erase the feeling of being used as a scapegoat for the death of a global icon. The scars ran deep. People who never met him still whispered his name with doubt, clinging to the sensational version they saw online. That's the cruel part of fame. Once you've fallen from the spotlight, the world stops seeing you as human. You become a headline, a name that can be tossed around without consequence. And Arsenio, who had already endured so much, being pushed out of Hollywood in 1994, spending silent years raising his son, and watching his 2014 comeback collapse, now faced something even darker. The Prince controversy wasn't just a career setback, it was a reminder of how cruel the public eye can be. When you're no longer powerful enough to control the narrative, people can paint you as the villain just because your name is recognizable enough to get clicks, but not influential enough to defend itself instantly. That's the unspoken cost of fading fame. Yet, despite all the pain, Arsenio Hall's story didn't end in bitterness. It became a reflection on legacy, loneliness, and endurance. Because when you look back across nearly 5 decades, his impact on American television remains undeniable. Arsenio wasn't just another host. He was the first black man to dominate late-night TV with a style no one had ever seen before. He didn't copy the polished, buttoned-up image of white hosts who came before him. He didn't try to blend in. Instead, he brought himself, his streetwise attitude, his hip-hop energy, his R&B rhythm, and his electric connection with the crowd. He turned talk show TV into a cultural movement. The Arsenio Hall Show wasn't just entertainment, it was representation. It gave a voice to artists and audiences who had been ignored for decades. It merged music, comedy, and activism into one bold mix that broke every rule the industry had set. That's why even today, when people talk about trailblazers in television, his name still stands tall. A reminder that real innovation always comes from those brave enough to do it their way. Arsenio Hall rose from the heart of Black America's golden era, a time when culture, music, and identity were breaking barriers and rewriting history. In the early 90s, he wasn't just a talk show host, he was a gatekeeper for a movement. He brought MC Hammer, Tupac Shakur, Boyz II Men, Mariah Carey, and New Edition onto national television, giving a platform to voices that defined a generation. And who could forget that legendary night when Bill Clinton stepped onto Arsenio's stage, saxophone in hand, and turned politics upside down? That single moment transformed an unknown candidate into the first politician with real cool factor. It wasn't just television, it was history being made live on stage. Those moments still live on today. Millions of clips replayed across YouTube, TikTok, and social media every year. But here's the tragedy. People celebrate those memories without truly understanding the context. They see the moments, but they forget the man who made them possible. Because the paradox of Arsenio Hall in 2025 is this. His influence is massive, but his recognition is small. He no longer has a permanent talk show. His name rarely appears in the lists of late-night legends that younger fans mention. Lists filled with Letterman, Leno, Conan, and Trevor Noah. But the truth is, none of them could have stood where they are if Arsenio hadn't kicked the door open first. While others are celebrated as symbols of progress, Arsenio, the man who started that progress, stands quietly in the background, a faint shadow behind the very doorway he built. At 69 years old, the real story isn't about fame or ratings anymore. It's about something deeper, the man himself. Have the wounds from his lonely childhood ever truly healed? Did becoming a single father fill the emptiness he once felt as a kid growing up without his dad? Or did it simply reshape his fears, turning that old ache into something quieter, something permanent? When he thinks about the empire he built, the show he lost, the rumors that tried to destroy him, does he feel regret? Or has he made peace with those scars, learning to live with them as part of who he is? If there's one final image of Arsenio Hall, it isn't the roaring woof, woof, woof that shook studios in 1991. It's a 69-year-old man sitting in a quiet room, reflecting on a sound that once echoed across America, a sound that feels distant now, but still burns bright in memory. His story isn't tragic because of scandal or failure. It's heartbreaking because he did everything right. He worked hard, lived with integrity, raised his son with love, and gave everything he had to the craft. Yet the system that once lifted him up eventually swallowed him whole. But legends never really disappear. They just fade until someone reminds the world why they mattered. If you felt this story, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories of icons who shaped history. See you on the next one.